the first on the Muslim ban, and long overdue. You know, I have a deep love for the United States of America. And, you know, as you think about it, school children all across this country every day state the Pledge of Allegiance. And in that, you know, the line that has always struck me as profound is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, as kids, we may not have known what that means. But as we get older and we learn about the Constitution and we learn about our values as Americans, we learn it's about those freedoms, those core values. And core to that is the freedom of religion. And, you know, in this great nation of ours, we don't tell people which God to pray to or how to worship. And that is core to what makes our country great. And when I think about, you know, one of the first actions that President Trump took in his first days in office profoundly went against those values. And that's why you saw such outcry all across this nation, because it really does smack against who we are. Now, we've seen several iterations of that executive order, but, you know, as my colleague, Mr. Biggs, pointed out, you know, this, you know, if we are to be objective and look at the threats and where terrorist threats were coming from, and if the intent here was to keep us safer, we didn't see this imminent threat. If I think about, you know, my privilege now as a member of Congress, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a doctor, and as such, you know, I won't argue the legal side of this one way or another, but I will look for the facts. And that is our job, and that is our constitutional duty as members of Congress, to conduct oversight. If we think about the Supreme Court ruling when they chose not to dismiss the ban, and I'm not going to say they upheld the ban, but they didn't toss the ban out. If you look at that dissenting opinion, Justice Breyer suggested that if there was a waiver process in here that was not actually objectively being implemented, well then, in fact, this was a Muslim ban. So in my oversight capacity as chair, I want to know what that waiver process looks like. I appreciate that State Department's provided us some data, but when I look at that data, of the tens of thousands of waiver applications, only 5% have been granted. I want to know why 95% were denied. Were 95% of the folks trying to come to the United States for reasons of hardship or national interest, did they present a national security risk? Again, I want to know what happens when that waiver application is sent, you know, into this black box, when it goes from the embassy to Washington, D.C. Who makes the decision? What's that process look like? You know, what authority have our consular officers been given? I think about this in the context of our most important job as members of Congress. It is to not just do oversight, but the people who we work for are our constituents, the people that we represent. And I think about one of my own constituents, Omnia. Omnia is a 2-year-old. And like many families in districts all across this country got stuck in this. And let me share her story. Her mother is an American citizen. She happened to be in Libya when Omnia was born. Her father is a Libyan. She was 7 months pregnant. She went to the consular office and she wanted to come back to the United States for her second child's birth. That 2-year-old was denied a visa. Now, Omnia's mother was told to return to the United States, have her child, and then come back to Libya and, you know, let the process take place. I find it hard to fathom that that 2-year-old didn't face undue hardship by being separated from her mom. I find it very difficult to fathom that that 2-year-old presented a national security risk. And I find it very difficult, given the values that we care about in this country of keeping families together, that, you know, it wasn't in that 2-year-old's interest, as well as our national interest, to keep that mother and child together. Well, we intervened, we were able to help out, and we were able to reunite that family. But when I saw them in my office a few months ago, that child continues to have anxiety issues and separation. That isn't who we are as the United States of America. So I've talked to many of my colleagues. They have similar stories to share about their constituents. The number of spouses that are being kept apart, the number of parents who want to see their children, even temporarily, who may be dying, who are not able to come visit their children. The number of children who can't see their parents who may be dying. Again, that isn't who we are. So I think all of us can agree that we have an obligation to keep our country safe. We have an obligation to have a thorough vetting process. But core to who we are is these values of humanity, these values of freedoms. And when you ban entire countries, that really smacks against who we are as the United States of America. So I look forward to the testimony of the witnesses. I expect answers to the questions and data about processes, denials, et cetera, as well as approvals. And again, I look forward to working with you. So thank you, and with that.